it's Kate from Sleep Time Baby, and welcome to day number 4 of the 5-Day Sleep Academy. So yeah, we're here, it's Thursday. We are talking today about bedtime routines and settling. So it's kind of like a short but big topic, so there's not much to it because actually I try and simplify it, but I will talk you through all of that. So this is all about how to get your child in that kind of a good routine to get them to settle well for sleep. But just before I talk about that, I just wanted to tell you a couple of extra things. So next week I'm going to be doing a Q&A all day on Monday. I do this for any new followers. I do a Q&A most Mondays, but I really want to kind of focus on doing that next Monday, so that any questions that come out of this week, you can sort of send over to me and I will answer them. I might come on live, or I might just do them during the day. So I keep an eye out on the kind of the pages to see, because I want to be able to kind of clarify your kind of questions on it all. And also there probably is going to be a competition post coming up quite soon. So keep an eye out for that, because actually it's really important that you know there's a benefit for all of this. So yeah, keep an eye on the social media for that. And then the last thing to mention is that I just need technology on my side a little bit, but I'm going to try and set up a little sign up form for the Facebook support group that I mentioned yesterday. So this is the kind of the new thing. So like I said before, I've got kind of like one-to-one services that I offer, and they're very much focused on the bespoke sleep help that you might need to get you in a great place for sleep. And I also have the kind of the academy, which you can, on my online course, which you can kind of download yourself and work through, but I want to add another layer onto that in helping you to settle. So there's going to be a new kind of Facebook groups that are going to be set up, so you can get access to the course and then get access to me perhaps over a couple of weeks, just to make sure that you're on the right journey to sleep. So keep an eye out on that. So a few things to keep an eye out on them basically, but just to let you know that there's more support out there. But let's get on to the topic of today. So today we're talking about bedtime routines and settling. And it's funny how kind of people get kind of quite worried about what this sort of end of the day looks like. And actually the most important thing is finding a way that works for you. Now this morning I was doing a talk with the lovely Milk and Fizz, Danielle, in St Albans, which is my hometown, and we had a room full of like 25 mums with their little babies that range from a few weeks old up until about 8 months, and everyone had a different sort of view on it. And that's really important for you to sort of know that your kind of journey around sleep is very much independent, but it's about what kind of works for you and your child. So have a think about that when I'm kind of talking about what I am telling you, because it needs to be part of your parenting style, and I always try and say that. So bedtime routines are all about this journey to sleep. So you imagine your kind of child that's had a great day, they might have napped, they might not need a nap, they are heading towards bedtime, and then suddenly you're like, quick, let's go to sleep. But you need to kind of help them out in that journey, and that is what bedtime routines are all about. They're kind of taking you from that point of being completely awake and then sort of trucking along with a little bedtime routine and ending up in that sleep. And one of the questions I had this morning is about when is it the right time to set up a bedtime routine, and arguably, again, when it's right for you, but you can start that from day one, because even tiny babies can start to see the little signals of what's happening next, so that they know that the end point is going to be falling asleep. So if you can stay in that kind of mindset and adopt a bedtime routine, and most importantly stay consistent, then they'll start knowing that that's their journey to sleep. And it also helps with the production of melatonin. So melatonin is the sleepy hormone. It's the hormone that helps us to feel sleepy around kind of bedtime, and it's what helps us to kind of drive into that good kind of pattern of sleep. So melatonin is produced in accordance with a couple of things. So important to know this, because melatonin is secreted, so it's produced by the brain at bedtime, because it knows that sleep is coming. So if you go to bed at the same time each night, then the body will start to know that, and it'll start to help you, because it will recognise those signals and the timing, and it will start to produce the melatonin, which will help you feel sleepy. Secondly, it's also produced in accordance with light levels. So that is why people talk about dimming the lights before bed. It's also why people talk about removing screen time for pretty much any age of child and adult as well. If you suffer from any kind of sleep issues or falling asleep, then you want to kind of reduce your screen time at least the hour before bedtime, so that you are encouraging the melatonin levels to sort of pick up. So really important in terms of kind of thinking about how you can naturally just help your child fall asleep. So what you don't want to do is kind of be varying massively what time your child is settling. So if one night you're asking them to sleep at 7 o'clock and the next night it's 9 o'clock, then their body's going to get a bit confused by that because the melatonin won't be in line with it. And that's also synced with the body clock. So in terms of when a good bedtime should be, standard answer to that really is often 7 o'clock, because it's a great kind of time to then factor in 12 hours of day, 12 hours of night, expecting them to kind of wake somewhere around 7 in the morning. There are a couple of caveats to that. A newborn will have a very different kind of approach to daytime, because their circadian rhythm, their body clock isn't quite established. You might find it easier that they fall asleep later, but you need to structure your day slightly differently. So don't be stuck to that 7 o'clock rule. And also, as children get older, they can stay awake for longer, but it doesn't happen perhaps as early as you think. I mean, to put it into context, my 10-year-old goes to bed about, 8:15, and my 7-year-old is around about 7:45. So it's not super late, really. And then also you can vary your bedtime slightly. I'll go back slightly on what I've just said, in the fact that if your naps have been terrible in the day, or if you've had a slightly later nap for whatever reason, you might want to put your bedtime earlier or perhaps later, depending on which of those was the issue. And that's because you don't want to kind of push them to bed too early if they're not tired enough, or you don't want to push them to bed too late if they're kind of overtired. So it's all about respecting their kind of sleep needs through the day. And I'll refer you back again to the kind of the download that I've put on the link on previous days, and I can share again if anyone needs it, just to kind of give you the idea of what you might need for your child, because it obviously varies by age. So yeah, kind of consider all of that kind of in the mix, but 7 o'clock is generally a good kind of time to kind of aim for, and then kind of work through all of that. So with your kind of bedtime routine, actually the kind of the advice that I give normally is don't make it too long. So if you can do kind of like half an hour bedtime routine, that's great. If you've got kind of a younger child that might need a bit of a focus on feeding, then add an extra kind of 15 minutes in there, make sure that feed is really good and full, and you can kind of help them to kind of make sure that they're set up for bedtime. But if you make a bedtime routine too long, then they can lose their kind of journey. So you want to make sure that you've got a consistent approach that isn't sort of drawn out too much. So I mean, a classic kind of average routine is, you know, going upstairs, having a bath, maybe getting changed, having a massage, something along those lines, perhaps having then the feed. If they're having one still, having a sip of milk if you've got an older child, and then perhaps cleaning teeth, reading a story, age dependent, and then kind of heading to bed. That's a good kind of sort of standard sort of routine. Now, people's will vary in all of that, and I'd say also if you've got a child that maybe is spending a lot of time feeding, then and it gets quite sleepy, which can happen if you're thinking about transitioning them away from that, just to help perhaps with other sleep issues that you might be having, then maybe just move the feed a bit earlier, so that you can focus on a feed being really full and good. Because what you don't want to do is kind of your child to feed and then fall asleep really quickly, because you might sort of be questioning whether they've had a full enough feed, and that's obviously one of the most important things. So think about your bedtime routine and think about kind of what it looks like and how it kind of works for you. But timing and length of it is actually really important. If you've got kind of like a tricky toddler that might be causing you kind of slight issues in terms of how long they like to draw things out for. So a classic example of this might be, I don't want to get out of the bath, or I'm not going to brush my teeth, or something along those lines, or I want another book. Then maybe try and build that routine with them. So with the older children I work with, often we draw a visual chart of the bedtime routine, and they can sort of tick their way along it, sort of going, we've done this, done that, on to the next things. And it helps them to kind of stay on that journey, and it helps them to kind of reaffirm what's happening. We are going to bed because we've talked about it, and the pictures kind of say that. So it's a really nice way of working with your child by just building out a kind of a bedtime routine with them. If you do have issues with kind of things like doing teeth for the right amount of time or getting out of the bath, make it fun, gamify it. Like maybe get a timer and go, okay, we're going to set 5 minutes on the timer for bath, maybe slightly longer, and you press the button, and then we'll get in the bath and have fun, and then get out again. And actually that's a really another important thing, is that people often talk about the bath not being a calming experience, and I always chuckle because yeah, it can be, but often children love the bath, they love that kind of splashing around, they love the interaction, so don't worry if the experience isn't calming. If you can hear it, it's just started horrendously hailing outside my window, so apologies for the interruption. It looks like, yeah, storm's coming our way. So kind of don't worry about your calming, soothing experience. Baths are great for bedtime, but they don't have to be this super calm thing. They can just be part of it. Like I said, journey to sleep is really, really kind of important. So once you've kind of got that routine all happening, the ideal, to be honest, is that you're keeping your child awake so that you can settle them from awake. Now, that might be different for people. You might kind of find that your child sleeps well if they kind of get a bit drowsy around sort of bedtime. But fundamentally, the concept of self-settling that we talked about earlier in the week is based on independent sleep and helping your child to settle in that way so that they can do it themselves and they can kind of move through the sleep cycles in the night so that they're going to sleep well. Obviously linked in with everything else that we've talked about. It's not the only thing. So in terms of kind of independent settling, just to kind of clarify that means that you're helping your child to get ready for bed, and then you're putting them down and they're falling asleep on their own. Now, don't be kind of worried about what I'm saying there in terms of that you're going to leave them just to cry, because that is what we don't do. Crying it out is not an option in kind of the way that I approach things. I think it's all about trying to get everything in a good place and then work towards your child settling independently. So, for example, if your child is breastfeeding to sleep and needs that at the moment to settle, but you're looking to kind of change that and move away from it because you know that you've worked out that might be causing them to wake more frequently than you like, then maybe just transition them out of it. So maybe don't feed them until they're quite so asleep, and then pop them into their sleep space and help them to settle with some like gentle touch. You can shush to them, you can sing to them, you can kind of encourage them to settle and keep going until they kind of settle. You could also perhaps even hold them a bit and then place them down, or do that over kind of a stage of time. It doesn't need to be a journey that's kind of overnight. From a self-settling point of view, you need to make sure everything's in a good place, then kind of move forward. With other things, you can apply that same sort of thought. So if you've got a child that's dependent on something to fall asleep, then think about just working away from what that is, and that will be different for every different kind of sleep association that your child might have. That whole kind of theory transfers on into older children because, and I was talking to someone today who's got a 3-year-old that needs daddy to sit with him at bedtime to fall asleep, and actually what you're kind of seeing there is forming that association. And so we just talked about kind of lessening that association over time. So it doesn't mean that daddy's not going to sit there anymore, he's just going to sit a little bit further away and get the child used to settling on their own a little bit more. So it's about kind of taking your kind of sleep situation and working out how you can ease yourself away from it. So from a settling point of view, I hope that gives you kind of an idea of, you don't need to change everything all at once. You just need to kind of gradually move kind of away from it so that you can help your child to settle better. Not forgetting that that's not the magic answer. You need to consider everything else that we've talked about, daytime, environment, and everything being in a kind of a good place. But fundamentally, the advice I'm trying to give you is that if you've got issues that you're trying to solve with your children's sleep, then looking at kind of settling in an independent way is a really, really great idea. So that's kind of the whole sort of looking at bedtimes and that journey to sleep. It's also kind of addressing the kind of the perhaps difficult issues you might have in terms of getting your toddler through those kind of bedtime routines. And kind of common issues that might kind of occur is that you sort of you kind of don't know whether to continue or not. And I think that you've got to kind of work out what's right for you. I think consistency can be really key when it comes to children's sleep. So always give something a few days, but if you're unsure as to whether you're doing the right thing, then obviously you can get in touch and we can look at kind of what that might look like for you. I've got a few questions that have kind of come through, so let me just have a quick look. So is 7 p.m. a realistic bedtime for a 3-month-old, breastfed on demand? He's stood up for feeds a few times in the night. We've been getting up to him when he wakes around 10 and bathing him. Also, you're kind of doing a couple of two sort of bedtime scenario. So I think I hopefully sort of alluded to that a little bit. I think, you know, it depends on whether a 3-month-old has got their body clock sorted. So you'll get a sense of how tired your child is at that time. So are they in the kind of the right state of tiredness to go down to settle? How have their naps been in the day? Should they be going to bed almost earlier sometimes or later? So have a think about what that kind of looks like for your child. It's not a bad place to start aiming for. Probably, you know, kind of between 3 to 4 months you can start getting to that kind of routine of getting into sort of a 7 p.m. sort of bedtime. So bear that in mind, really. So yeah, that's kind of it for today. Like I said, it's one that people are really worried about, but actually bedtime and sort of settling needs to be quite straightforward and sort of simple, and it's got to be about right place, right time, right environment, and kind of following the kind of the journey to sleep so that you can help your child to settle. But if you can get that right from the beginning, i.e. settling at bedtime, it can make a massive improvement in terms of what happens through the night. So I'd encourage you to kind of have a think about it. Always start making any changes at bedtime, because that's often the easiest way to make improvement. So I will go away and try and get my technology work and show you some more details about the kind of the new way of working with me, and I will share these to the platforms, and don't forget about the Q&A on Monday. But have a lovely rest of the afternoon. The hailstorm that was just there has now completely stopped, so yeah, it's a beautiful afternoon again. So go out, enjoy it, and enjoy the fresh air. All right, take care, speak to you soon, bye bye.